How do you defeat an army of 80,000 with just 168 men? It sounds like a fantasy epic, a battle from the Lord of the Rings. But this isn't fiction. This is the story of how a force smaller than the staff of a single high school brought the largest empire in the Americas to its knees in a single afternoon. This is the story of a clash of worlds so profound it shattered a continent and redrew the map of history forever. To understand how this happened, you have to understand the impossible odds, the breathtaking audacity, and the single fatal mistake that made it all possible. Our story takes place in November of 1532, high in the Andes Mountains of what is now Peru. The Inca Empire, a civilization of 10 million people, stretched for 2,500 miles, a marvel of engineering and social organization. It was ruled by one man, considered a living god, the Sapa Inca, Atahualpa. Atahualpa was at the absolute peak of his power. He had just won a brutal civil war against his own brother, and now commanded a battle-hardened army of 80,000 warriors, all fiercely loyal to him. And then, a new player entered the game, Francisco Pizarro, a Spanish conquistador with just 168 men, a handful of horses, and a few primitive cannons. Driven by rumors of a city of gold, they had marched for months, climbing into the thin mountain air, into the heart of an empire they couldn't possibly comprehend. They were exhausted, outnumbered, and utterly alone. The odds weren't just bad, they were suicidal. By any rational measure, they should have been wiped out. Pizarro and his men arrive at the mountain city of Cajamarca to find it empty, eerily silent. But from the city square, they can see them, on the hillside surrounding the valley. The campfires of the Inca army stretch as far as the eye can see. 80,000 men, an army the size of the crowd at a modern Super Bowl, waiting just beyond the city. Pizarro knows a direct fight is impossible. He needs a different strategy. He needs to set a trap. He sends a small envoy, led by his captain Hernando de Soto, to ride directly into the lion's den, the Inca camp, to invite Atahualpa to a meeting in the city square. Imagine the tension. A few dozen men on horseback, a creature the Inca had never seen before, riding through a sea of tens of thousands of enemy warriors. They reach Atahualpa, who is surrounded by his court, utterly unimpressed. After a display of Spanish horsemanship meant to intimidate him, Atahualpa makes a fateful decision. He agrees to visit Pizarro in the square the next day. And in a display of supreme confidence, he announces he and his retinue will come unarmed, to show the strangers they have nothing to fear from a god. For Pizarro, this is the miracle he was praying for. The trap was now set. The next day, November 16th, the 168 conquistadors hide themselves inside the empty buildings surrounding Cajamarca's main square. They have a handful of cannons positioned for a clear line of fire and horsemen ready to charge from the alleyways. And then they wait. The hours tick by, in agonizing silence. Finally, in the late afternoon, the Inca procession begins. It's not an army, but a magnificent parade. Thousands of attendants sweep the road clean, followed by dancers and singers in vibrant colors. And then, Atahualpa himself, carried high on a golden litter adorned with parrot feathers, weighing over 180 pounds, surrounded by his most loyal nobles. About 6,000 unarmed Inca fill the square, a tide of humanity completely unaware of the storm about to break. A Spanish friar approaches Atahualpa with a Bible, demanding he accept Christianity and Spanish rule. Atahualpa, confused and insulted, throws the book to the ground. That was the signal. Pizarro waves a white cloth. A cannon fires. The sound cracks through the thin mountain air like thunder. Then, the shriek of trumpets, and from every building, the Spanish charge. It is a perfect, terrifying ambush. The shock is absolute. The noise of the arquebuses, the sight of armored men on monstrous beasts, the glint of Toledo steel. It was unlike anything the Inca had ever experienced. It was psychological warfare at its most brutal. Chaos erupts as the unarmed Inca retinue, trapped in the square's high walls, are cut down. But the main objective wasn't just to kill. It was to capture the god. Pizarro himself, wearing a full suit of armor but knowing the stakes, fights his way through the sea of bodies directly toward Atahualpa's litter. The Inca nobles form a human wall, desperately trying to protect their king, offering their own bodies to the Spanish blades. But it's no use. The Spanish cut them down and topple the litter. Pizarro himself grabs Atahualpa, pulling him down from his golden throne and into the custody of his men. The entire battle lasts less than half an hour. In that time, thousands of Inca are killed. The number of Spanish dead? 0. The moment their living god was captured, the massive 80,000-strong army on the hills was paralyzed. Their command structure was severed at the head, An order from the Sapa Inca was the only thing that mattered, and now their Sapa Inca was a prisoner. Without him, the empire's central nervous system had been shut down. As a prisoner, Atahualpa made one of the most famous ransoms in history. He noticed the Spaniards' obsession with gold and silver. Standing in his cell, he offered to fill the entire room, a space 22 feet long and 17 feet wide, once with gold and twice over with silver in exchange for his freedom. Over the next 8 months, a river of priceless Inca art and treasure flowed into Cajamarca from all corners of the empire. It amounted to over 13,000 pounds of gold and 26,000 pounds of silver. In today's money, the value is almost impossible to calculate, easily worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. The Spanish accepted the ransom, and then, fearing an uprising, they executed him anyway. So how did 168 men conquer 10 million? They had the technological advantage of steel, guns, and horses. They had the unwitting help of European diseases, which had already swept ahead of them and decimated the Inca population. But most importantly, they understood their enemy's single greatest weakness. The Inca Empire was a marvel of centralization. Everything, power, religion, identity, flowed from one man. And by capturing that one man, Pizarro didn't just capture a king, he captured the entire operating system of the empire. He performed a strategic decapitation. The story of Cajamarca is a brutal, timeless lesson in the fragility of systems. It shows that even the largest and most powerful structures, whether ancient empires or modern corporations, can collapse in an instant if they have a single point of failure. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes, the greatest strength can hide the most fatal weakness.